Former Mariners pitcher Rowland-Smith is with us, and Ryan, before we talk a lot of baseball and whatever else is going on in the sports world, you're a busy dude, man. Is it the topstep.com? Is that kind of like where everybody can find your podcast?
Yeah, it's the Top Step. So basically I called it that because I say this too during it. Some of my favorite memories in the big leagues, sitting on that top step, just having conversations, days in between starts, just learning about people's stories, and that's what I wanted to do with this podcast. So I've had baseball players on there, I've had different athletes, comedians, MMA fighters. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like you're keeping busy. I mean, you've got a lot of things going on, and you're still doing the stuff with Root, and I saw you do a cartwheel once on the set. I mean, you're not afraid of doing anything.
No, I'm trying, man. I'm trying. You got to liven it up, especially last year when the Mariners started to struggle a little bit. Tom Murphy hit a couple home runs. It was a good time, and I tried to match that cartwheel. I basically said back to the guys in the control room, I said, "Hey, let me do a cartwhole." They're like, "You serious?" I'm like, "Yeah, let me knock it out." And I'm like, "Oh, here we go. Pants are going to go split, and shirt's going to go popping off." It was live too, so I nailed it.
Yeah, you
no
look
broken
good, man.
wrists.
Yeah,
didn't throw the shoulder out. It was good.
You look good. We're an athlete. Come on. All right, so put yourself back in your playing days. The way Major League Baseball has this season set out, are you in favor of it? Would you be in favor of it if you were a current player?
Yeah, I think it's you get to that point, and talking to a lot of guys on the podcast, that they're just itching to get back out there, get amongst it. Braden Bishop went into detail about putting the new spikes on, putting the new uniform on in spring training. He said little things that you just miss. So I think obviously there's health concerns and everything else, and they've had to cram in this spring training 3 weeks to get ready, which is crazy. I know I'd struggle with that. I was a slow starter to get going. So. And all the testing and everything else that goes on, the different protocols. But I think these guys, they're just ready to roll. And I think even though it's 60 games, I think they need this. They definitely need this. So I know talking to these guys, they're super excited. I know I would be excited to get back at it.
So as a pitcher, 3 weeks is kind of scary.
Yeah.
As a position player, maybe not so much. It's a timing thing with batting. But as a pitcher, is it more difficult? You think?
It's really difficult, and it's going to be interesting once April kicks off. I mean, sorry, oh man, I'm back in 2019. Once the end of July and then August rolls in, you're going to see who's prepared and who's not. It's one of these things. Once the news broke, it's natural just to sort of go into your little cave and maybe go on Amazon and get that bow net and start taking hacks or throwing pitches into it. But then you kind of take your foot off the gas, and all of a sudden, after all these, these labor disputes and everything else, now it's like, all right, strap it on. We've got this summer camp going on, and it's literally 3 weeks. I was a slow starter, and I figured out that, the years when I had to really make the team and I had to go in and impress right away, that's when I had the really good first month of the season. But those years where I kind of knew I was on the team and I used spring training more as like preparation, man, my first month was bad. And I remember 2010, that's what really sort of spiraled out of control for me because I just wasn't prepared. So I think that really, when you look at this team and a lot of young players, I think that really benefits them. They're going to have energy, they're excited to get back, and hopefully they've been getting good reps in. It's been hard with this isolation. So, man, 3 weeks, I know it'd be tough for me as a pitcher, but we'll see. We'll see.
How about the changes that they're making, with putting a guy on second base to start the 10th inning, DH in the National League, some of these other changes?
Yeah.
Do you think that baseball can benefit from these changes in the future, maybe tweak the game a little?
Yeah, first of all, I love the pitcher hitting. I love the fact that 50% of baseball, you have the DH, and 50% you have some, a little bit of some human element to it. I think baseball, and not to be old school, but I love the fact that there's still that touch of human element where, a pitcher isn't quite confident getting in the batter's box. And then you got the guys who take pride in it, like Madison Bumgarner, Zach Greinke, guys like that. They take such pride in hitting. So I don't like the fact that that's the new trend where DH is just going to go into all of baseball. But some of these other things, why not? This is the time to do it. You got this 60-game season. Why not try implementing some of these things? The season, I've said this, and I know a lot of people will probably shake their head at this. 162 games, that's a lot of games, man. I grew up in Australia and I go home and I got friends saying, how many games do they play? I'm like, 162. And they're like, why? So I'm all about maybe having a shortened season too. So who knows? But I mean, this is definitely the time to do it and try some of these things out. Runner on second, I've done that in international baseball, playing for Australia, we've done that. I don't mind it. It's a different strategy to finish the game off, and it'll be interesting to see if this rolls into 2021.
All right, well, before we move ahead, take me back to your first at bat. Like, what was it like for you when you got in the batter's box?
Well, so I go back to spring training. We're playing the Rockies, and I was back when they were Tucson. So I remember that morning I go into spring training, and I think it was Lee Tinsley, he was like the third base coach at the time, and he said, hey, how are you swinging? Because you got a hit today. I was like, what? Yeah. I was like, oh, so we're not using the DH? I hadn't hit since I was 17. So I was like, oh man. So the whole bus ride down is that long bus ride. I'm not even thinking about pitching. I'm like, oh man, this is going to be embarrassing. I get a chance to take some BP. I couldn't even, literally making contact was a struggle. So all I was worried about was that first at bat. Jason Marquis, who was an all-star that year, he was pitching. He was like 86 because spring training. I'm like, oh, I can handle 86. Whack, base hit, little off-balance swing, boom, shot through the hole. I was like, oh, this is easy. The whole dugout came out like I just won the World Series or something. That was crazy. So I was like, oh, this is easy. My first at bat in the big leagues, I'll never forget. You're playing in front of a huge crowd, and just it looks way nasty. They mix in that breaking ball, no chance. So I think if you look up my numbers, it's not good. So it's pretty embarrassing. My last at bat though, I never forget. I had to lay a bunt down. I had Kirk Gibson was my manager. This was with the D-backs, and I get up to hit. I'm like, oh man, I got to lay a bunt down. I just wanted to swing, Sure enough, Tim Hudson's pitching. He's like 88 with a turbo sinker, and Buster Posey's standing right here. I go to lay this bunt down. It looked pathetic, right? I look back I cringed watching it on the video. And Buster Posey stood up. He's like, hey, when was the last time you hit, man? As if to say, that was brutal. And I was like, oh, this is bad. So I couldn't get the bunt down. Come in, I'm like, you know what? Like, Kirk Gibson, he's not that fiery. Oh, man, I got back in the dugout. He let me have it, too, for not getting that bunt down. So just shattered me. That was my last at-bat in the big leagues.
Tell me about Gibby, though, because not a lot of guys in this area can tell us stories about him, but what was it like playing for him?
It was awesome. Like, so I go into spring training, and I hear must have heard some stories or something. He's like, and this is right after them and the D-backs and the Dodgers were like, having bench clearances and drilling each other. He loved that. And someone must have said to him, oh yeah, hey, Ryan's done some MMA training, or he loves to fight, or he's Australian, or something ticked him off, because he's like, hey man, you like to get after it? I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, you like to, like, if you drill a guy, you're able to. I'm like, yeah man, like, and I'm trying to impress, man. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. So literally all spring training, he's like, hey man, it's going to happen this year. And I'm like, okay, can we like get back to, I'm a lefty who throws a slider, and does this guy even know who I am? Like, so it was crazy, man. The whole spring training, it's like we bonded over that, because it's like he couldn't wait to drill someone and have a bench clearance. It was unreal. But he was fun, man. I love those kind of managers who just get fired up and everything else. So, we got along really well. We got a chance to go to Australia together. So I was basically the tour guide down there. So I bonded with Gibby, and it was a lot of fun playing for him. That's for sure.
That's a great story. Hey, tell me about where'd the hyphen come from anyway? Like, was that just part of a Mariners commercial? Did someone actually give you that nickname?
I think, so before my debut, I got called up, and not many people know this, but I got called up for 3 days against the Yankees, never pitched. Went back down, and I was like, oh man. But the whole time, I remember Jeff Evans, he used to be part of the PR crew here. Yeah, he kept coming up to me every day, and he was like, hey man, you realize no one else has ever had a hyphenated name? It was in the players' notes too. And I'm like, man, this is embarrassing. Like, who cares? Like, can't we talk about something that I'm good at? Like, I mean, it's just. And so he kept talking about this hyphenated name. I'm like, I just don't. I don't care. Like, I don't want to. I'm nervous as it is. I'm 24-year-old punk from Australia. I don't. You know what I mean? So he kept bringing up the name, and I never pitched. Then I come back a few months later, about 3 weeks later, and all of a sudden, everyone's like, oh, hyphen, the hyphen's back here, and this and that. I'm like, oh man, this is kind of stuck from nowhere. And that's kind of where it came from. And it's funny, I went back that off season, and I tried to ask, I said, hey, where'd the hyphen come from? Because people just assume my parents joined the names. And when I asked, my dad's side of the story was, it was, my great-grandfather was a big deal, and he was a politician or something, and they wanted to keep his name to honor his name. First name was Rowland, last name was Smith. I was like, oh, that's a great story. Then from my mum's side of the family, she's like, no. They changed their name because they're trying to avoid like tax evasion or something. So I'm like, I don't know what to believe. People ask me all the time, and I'm not quite sure. Back in the convict era, back in Australia, I got no idea, to be honest.
Okay, so
I did get heckled bad for it though. I'll tell you right now. Like,
yeah, like what?
I'd go on the road like, oh, you took your wife's name and all this. Like, I'm single. This is before I was married, and I was trying to defend myself. But I used to get heckled for the name all day long.
Man, so you heard from who would be the worst hecklers in the majors? Like what stadium would?
East Coast for sure. I got to give it to. First of all, give a shout out to Toronto. There's a lot of like younger, very very smart heckling going on there. Like they do their research. But anywhere on the East Coast, man, New York, especially the old stadium when they're right on top of you in the bullpen. But Baltimore, nothing worse. There's a bar right above, so they're right above you. You know, you can't help but catch the ball, sort of glance up there, and they just give it to you, man. They're relentless, man. On top of you in that bullpen up in Baltimore.
Yeah. Do you just block it out? Like you must joke with your teammates and say, "Did you hear that one?"
I tried it. Like I have a good chuckle if someone else is getting and I'm not pitching. I have a good laugh. I think it's hilarious. I love it. But then when I'm trying to get all fired up, like the minute you glance up there, you're done. So you just have to block it out and do your best and get in the game.
Well, I know in Australia, there's always stories. I talked to the Seahawks punter Michael Dixon about it too. Like, just American sports and things down there. Football was just not even a thing down there. It was just rugby, and baseball wasn't either. You guys were watching them on VHS,
yes,
I guess.
Yes.
So when the Mariners came down, they were one of the few teams to scout you. Would you have come up here just for expenses? You think at that point?
Well, yeah. Basically, look. Put it this way, and I don't know if Michael says the same thing, but I used to watch American football and baseball. It used to be on like 3 o'clock in the morning. They used to show highlights. There's a weekend show that they used to show highlights, and it was so cool. Like nothing beat American sports when it came to atmosphere and the stadiums and the facilities and baseball playing indoors in a dome. It was crazy. So that's how I grew up, and I was like, man. So I'd set the VHS for 3 a.m. start, wake up, eat my breakfast, get ready for school, and I'm watching the Phillies versus whoever. I didn't care. I just wanted to watch it. I loved it. But when I got a little bit older, there's probably a handful of teams that were pretty serious about actually making offers to send players over. And if you were signing for $100,000, that was like you were big time. You know what I mean? So the Mariners, I remember 2000 Olympics were on, and they were watching. So the international guy was watching someone from the Dutch team or something. And he's actually Australian, so I knew him, and I'd work with him a little bit, coaching and stuff. Like he'd coach me a little bit and everything else. And he said, "Hey man, like we're kind of watching you and this and that." At that point, I didn't even make like the national team. I got cut from that, so I was like, if I don't make this national team, I got no shot. And then the Olympics was on, and someone said, "Hey, we're having a little showcase with a couple scouts." Oh, sweet. So I went and hit. I used to hit. The twin scout, Howie Norsetter, who's still scouting down there. He said, "Oh, you're too slow, this and that." He just, kind of let me know. And then that afternoon, I'm getting back in the car, and the Mariner scout, his name was Barry Holland, came up and said, "Oh, hey, would you, if we made an offer today, would you sign?" I said, "Oh, okay." And I'm trying to be cool. I'm like, "Oh, how much?" Like, I don't know. What much? Like I'm Jerry Maguire or something. And he said, "Oh, we'll offer you $25,000." And mind you, I'm a high school kid, and if you're in the States, you'd be like, yeah, forget about it. You know what I mean? Because I threw pretty firm and everything else. And I was like, oh, give me a couple of days to think about it. I get back in the car, I'm just like, doing this, like fist pumping. I'm like, this is amazing. I'm going to sign that. He comes back, $30,000. And we'll give you like $20,000 towards college or whatever. I was like, yeah, boom, let's do it. So that was it, man. There was no negotiation. It was just bang straight in, and off I was. And I was flying over the next spring training. That was it.
That's a good one too. So all it took for you was you would have signed for $25,000, but
I would have signed for a can of Coke and peanuts on the plane. I didn't care.
All right, let's take you to your major league debut. I know you've talked about this a lot, but man, a guy like you, that's a great story to tell. And I know Griffey told you once that now you got a story for your grandkids.
Yes.
But I mean, your major league debut was against Griffey. For those who haven't heard the story, give me the experience that was that night.
Yeah, well, first of all, talking about growing up in Australia, if I tell them, oh, hey, I faced David Ortiz, they're going to be like, I don't know who that is. He's a superstar. So the fact that I got someone who was on The Simpsons back in Australia was perfect. You know what I mean? Like everyone knew who he was. They knew Babe Ruth, maybe Derek Jeter if he was dating a celebrity back then, and Ken Griffey Jr. Perfect. And I grew up, I loved him, I idolized him. So I remember we're playing the Reds, and like I said, I got called up to play against the Yankees, and I'm 24 years old, and I have a bit of imposter syndrome. You know what I mean? I'm not supposed to be here. So we're playing the Yankees, and I'm like just hiding in the corner. I don't want to pitch. Didn't pitch. I get sent back down to AAA, and I'm on the plane thinking, oh man, like, come on, like, I got to get my head. I need to pitch here a little, like I need to do something. So I go back down. It's weeks. It felt like 3 years. It was 3 weeks until I got called back up. And I'm coming back up, and I'm checking Google. I'm like, okay, who are we playing? Hopefully it's like Tampa Bay, who weren't good, on a Tuesday. But sure enough, it's a Friday night playing the Reds. Griffey's coming back. You got to be kidding me, right? And my manager in AAA said, oh, they want you to face some lefties. I'm like, oh God, who else is in this lineup? So I get out there, and we're getting absolutely crushed. I mean, we're down 16 to something, or 16 to 3, I think it was. And I'm like, I'm pitching here for sure. And Slayton was the pitching coach, and I had known him, from just being in camp before. And he goes, hey, Lefty, you're going to pitch tonight, man, for sure. And I was like, oh, okay. So I'm sitting there kind of, and the place is still packed. It wasn't like it was 16 to 3, so everyone goes home. They all want to see Griffey. That's what everyone is there. They're on their feet every time he walked out of the dugout. So there I am, and they said, hey, he said, phone rings, go get loose, start getting loose. And he said, oh, you're going to have one of these lefties. I look up, and you've got Josh Hamilton, Griffey, and Adam Dunn. All of them are all-stars. I'm like, I don't care. Just give me one of the other two. I don't even know, And I'm watching that lineup. I'm seeing that little dot next to the names. I'm like, oh, man, it's getting close to Griffey here. I'm like, yep, you're in. I said, oh, who am I facing? He said, oh, Junior. I'm like, you got to be joking, man. I do not belong here. This is, So I'm running in, and honestly, the first thought I had was, and I see him 60 feet away, and I'm like, oh, man, like this is, it was just tough because I'm like, where, like, it was just that moment of like, okay, get back into what you're doing. And another thought, I'm like, just don't walk him. This place is going to be like, who is this dude walking at this guy? We want to see him hit bombs, right? And so sure enough, I throw a couple pitches, couple strikes, foul the pitch off. I get to, I think it was like 1-2 count. I'm just going to throw the biggest breaking ball of my life here. Snapped it off, and he swung right over it, and boom, there I am. I'm like, oh, I just struck out a legend. I love it. This is great. I get the nice little boo from the crowd.
They booed you in this place?
It was just like a groan, like, oh, really, dude? Like, just serve up that 88 mile an hour fastball and let him have it. So
oh, man.
It's like they were mad at me. But anyway, it was an amazing debut. And I was talking to had Braden Bishop on the podcast, just talking about debuts. He had a special one too, with his mum. And I was thinking after that, I was like, man, so many of my friends, it's mid-September, they're getting blown out. And that, nothing beats that debut, I think, for me.
And he was at your wedding too, correct?
He was invited. He couldn't make it. He literally pulled out days before. And it's funny because I had like all these other baseball players, and I'm like, oh, Griffey's coming, Griffey's coming. So I'm getting just a text, basically a request form from all of them. Can I sit at that table? but I had him and Mike Sweeney at the same table. So Mike Sweeney was there. So I had all these, like some of my friends who played in the big leagues, and they're all dying to sit at his table. But Mike made up for it. They all love to sit with Mike Sweeney, so it worked out good, yeah.
But Griffey told you afterward, because you talked to him about that at some point down the road, right?
Yeah, I couldn't wait to ask him and just say, hey, do you remember that? Of course he didn't. He's like, I don't remember that. I said, hey, man, when you came back, the first time you came back, you were the first hitter I ever faced. He goes, oh, yeah, was I? Like it was nothing. I'm thinking to myself, like, he's going to remember this. And he goes, oh, what did I do? I said, I actually struck you out. And I kind of like put my head down. He goes, oh, you got a story for your grandkids? I was like, yeah, thanks.
That sounds like him, man.
Oh, yeah.
That sounds like him. The Mariners commercials are such a big deal, and everybody used to wait on on the edge just to see what they would be like this year. And you were in one with the Hyphen. But when you made it a Mariners commercial, was that a fun thing? Do you feel like I've arrived at that point?
Yeah, because they used to show them. When every year I was in the minor leagues, I was in the minor leagues for 6 years, so every spring training they'd show them on the TVs. And I was like, oh, check out these commercials, that's so big time. And then I get to camp, make my debut in 2007, and then 2008, I end up having a good year in 2008. I'm like, oh, here we go. Am I close here to getting on one of these? And then sure enough, and they asked me to do one, and straight away I was like, absolutely. It was special. It was nice too, because, remember, growing up in Australia, I go back to this all the time. You're fighting for approval and respect for baseball, because no one, it's like, oh, you don't play rugby, see ya. You know what I mean? That's how it was. At my school, you weren't getting any girls if you didn't play rugby or you didn't surf, you know what I mean? That's how it was. And so all of a sudden it's like, I get to the big leagues, and you just appreciate anytime someone, gives you an opportunity like that, you just appreciate it so much. And so when that came along, I was like, oh, let's do it. And I put some work in too. You know, my wife, she's an actress, so she was giving me voice warm-ups and cues. It was great, yeah. Loved it.
I want to talk to you about your wife, Amanda, in just a few, but when you talk about being down there, and if you weren't playing rugby or you weren't surfing, you weren't anybody, but do you do some surfing too, or did you?
Yeah, I mean, if I was to say yes, and then any of my friends caught on in Australia, they'd be like, "Are you kidding me?" Because last time I went out, I used to surf every day as a kid. I used to be up at 5 a.m. middle of winter, and catch a bus, down to the beach. And if this is pre internet checking a surf report, cameras and stuff like that. But I went back to my home. I hadn't been back to my hometown in like 2 years. I went back and a buddy of mine's like, oh, hey, you left one of your boards at my house. I was like, oh, really? Straight away, Amanda's like, oh, you need to go surfing tomorrow. And they're like, oh, it's not supposed to be good. And she's like, no, take him out. And they're like, they get to do it every day. You know what I'm saying? They live on the beach. And so there we are. And they're like, oh, I said, all right, let's do this. I hadn't surfed for like a couple of years. And I was like, oh, come on, man. I grabbed this board. It just feels way too small for me. And they're like, oh, we'll just jump off these rocks over here, like the pros do. Like, let's just go in on the sand here. Like, let's go on the kiddie waves here. So I'm jumping off. I'm cutting my feet up, jump in. I'm paddling. I'm just like I'm like, I'm going to drown here for sure. Get out there. Don't catch one wave. I'm just sitting out there like holding on the board, shivering. It was brutal. So that was my last experience surfing. But I used to surf all the time. I mean, I surfed in Indonesia. My sister and I went on a surfing trip to Indonesia back in the day, but lately, man, I wish I could. I just don't have the time to do it.
Okay, so, but down there, as a shark fan and a Jaws fan, I know there's great whites down there. So, I mean, aren't you freaking out just a little bit?
I got to tell you, as a kid, I mean, we used to be way out there. We didn't even think about it. We're like, oh, it could be sharks, whatever. I get over, and my first year in the States, I flick on the TV on Discovery Channel. It's Shark Week. But that scarred me for life, man. So every time I go back, I'm doing this one, like doing alligator arms in the water because of Shark Week. You know what I mean? Yeah. So Americans always say to me, they're always like, oh, hey, what about the sharks, this and that? And I'm like, oh, I guess I never really thought about it. But then all of a sudden, man, I get back there, I'm like, I'm not walking in that water anymore. Thanks to you, thanks to you guys. You
guys I'm the same way too, man. I saw a movie in the '70s, and as a kid, I won't go out there.
Yeah, it's so funny too. Like, when you're a kid, like, oh, just poke them in the eyes. Oh no, you just grab their. It's like, yeah, okay, yeah, all right.
Yeah, it's just that easy. All right, let's talk about the ninja experience. Ninja Warrior, you were in Tacoma. You did how much training did you do to get ready for that competition?
Very little. It's something that, my boss John Bradford of Root Sports, he texted me, said, hey, you ever seen Ninja Warrior? I said, yeah, absolutely. He goes, do you want to be a part of it? Thinking I'll just go down there and high five people or hang out with a mariner moose, and maybe jump in the water and make an idiot of myself. I didn't realize he meant compete. So I was like, yeah, let's do it. So then, weeks later, he texts me in capital letters, hey, you've got to get in touch with JD, who was the producer there. And I was like, what? And so I called him. He goes, oh, you ready to compete? I'm like, compete? Like, you mean like on TV? Like, I was like, I'm not doing that. There's no way. I'm out of shape. There's no and he said, no, man. And he has that that gift of talking you into something. I was like, all right, I guess I'll compete. And I'm like, what did I just sign myself up for? This is crazy. So I literally had 2 weeks to prep. And they put me in touch with a guy here locally who, he's been to the finals and everything else. And we head down to Seattle bouldering project down there. Yeah. And he's like, all right, let's check your grip strength out. Mate, it was, I'm on the kids' wall, you know what I mean? It was embarrassing. And I was like, oh no. And I had blisters all over me. My forearms were just locked up. And I'm like, I've got no chance. But then as the days, I was so nervous. I've pitched in the major leagues, but I lost a lot of sleep over this compared to what I did in here. So the day came, I was like, just whatever I do, just embrace it. If I slip off the steps, 2 feet in, just put the arms up, do this one. Got to the first stage. Second one, I'm like, I'm going to nail this. Gripped on, boom. I'm like, I've got this. Tried to make that jump. All of a sudden I realized I was mid-30s and just out of shape. Couldn't make it, and boom, slipped right off. Brutal.
You made the first steps, but the second one was what they call the lunatic ledges. And you're 6'3", 235, dude. Right, give yourself some credit. That's a tough a guy your size.
The thing was, I looked on it and it was I guess it's called a straight grip or something, rock climbing terms. I'm like, I could never do that. So I grip, I'm like, oh, I've got the grip. And I'm swinging on this thing. I'm like, I was too caught up in the fact that I'm actually gripping onto this thing. It's like, oh, I actually have to jump to this thing now. And so I did that second. I just completely mistimed it. I'm lucky I didn't, do a backflip into the water. But it was fun. I got to meet a lot of people and be a part of that, and way more respect for those athletes. I'll tell you right now, because I'm not gonna lie, I've been sitting on the couch drinking a beer, going, "Oh, I could do that. I could get up that wall." No chance. I'm telling you right now, no chance.
I give you a lot of credit for doing it. I would never have done it, and you did it in short training time, and like I said, you're a big dude. The guys that usually excel are the guys that are pound for pound super strong.
Yeah, that's for sure. Absolutely, yeah.
Well,
sure.
I know John Ryan did it too, and he had a tough time. He's a pretty big dude too.
Yeah. Well, I actually had him on the podcast, and we talked about it quite a bit. He gave me the best advice, because I'm getting all this advice about grip strength and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, it's just way over my head. And I text him, and I said to John, I was like, hey, just give me something. He gave me like just the little things, like, hey, it's going to be really dark. The light's going to be in your face. You got even though they tell you they'll rush you up, you got plenty of time. Don't listen to them. But just all these little things that help the common folk like me who've got no idea what I'm doing. I was like, oh man, this is great advice. It just it calmed my nerves for sure.
Yeah. All right, you talk about the Australian accent has always been a cool accent for people, and they always walk around town. They try to act like shrimp on the bobby and that kind of crap. Do you ever do an accent of American, like when you describe your buddies and say, oh,
I'll be honest. When I get on like customer service, I speak an American accent.
Do you?
Because if I'm trying to explain, my name or something, I'm talking to someone who's never heard an Australian accent in the States. If it's customer service in the US, I just flick it right into an American accent, and they're like, oh, boom! It goes way faster. It's something that if I'm out in public, I'm like, really self-conscious about it. But if I'm just on customer service on the phone, boom, just straight American accent. It's not good.
So what would be an example of you calling customer service? Like making an appointment or something, or what?
Yeah, if it's if my computer or something's busted or whatever it is, or I do actually do one with with locally the Seattle. I did one actually recently with the Seattle City Light. I just basically went to an American accent because it's just easier just to get the message across.
So come on, man, give me something. What you
Southern California? I got a Southern one. I got no. Oh man,
how'd that call go? Take me through that. Since that was most recent, what did you? Just give me one sentence as an American accent.
Oh man, you put me on the spot right now. This is live TV.
No, it's not. I'll edit it. If it stinks, we'll take it out.
Yeah. Hey, what's going? I can't even do it. Hey, I just wanted to check in on this bell. I'm looking at the number. Doesn't seem right.
Dude, that's good.
Good. Good.
That's
everyone's
really
like, oh,
good.
it's terrible. Okay, yeah. So I just kind of go in. I slur the R's and try and sound. Sometimes I go into Southern California or something like that.
Which would be what? Hey, dude. Like,
what's going on, man? I'm just trying to figure out this bill. I'll drop a cheeseburger in there or something like that.
Dude, that's really good, man. You can switch it like that.
I do have a story about the Aussie accent, and I talked to John Ryan about this when he was with the Packers. We talked about Appleton, Wisconsin. Now, mind you, I'm 19 years old, fresh from Australia, and I'm like, where am I? I mean, I'm in the snow. I've never played baseball in snow in my life. Well, the Outback Steakhouse was opening up, right? Like they had this grand opening. And I'll go in there, and the staff in there is speaking Australian accents, and I'm like, oh man, I'm cringing. I'm like, oh yeah, can I just get a glass of water? They're like, oh, good accent. That's really good. Wow. And I'm like, oh, this is brutal. So, yeah.
You're right at home, man.
Oh yeah, right at home. Yeah.
They probably want you to work there.
I would have made more money doing that than playing minor league baseball. I'll tell you right now.
Hey, you bring up minor league baseball because I want to talk about Amanda and a little bit of how you guys got together. But minor league baseball for you, you had a stretch of 3 years there where you went to Houston, Cubs, Boston.
Yeah.
How tough was that for you?
Tough. It was really tough. I was coming off a really bad year, 2010. And I just lost it, man. I lost it. Psychologically, I was a mess. As a matter of fact, that's where I started doing I went and started doing MMA training just to try and get that fight back, because that's how I was. I was always a fighter, getting my way all the way up to the major leagues, and I just lost that. So I went from this stretch, and I didn't want to leave the Mariners. I left the Mariners after 2010. They made me an offer, and I was advised to, oh no, that's lowball offer, and at that point I was like, I don't care. I just want to play somewhere I'm comfortable. But then I went through this crazy stretch. I went to the Astros, and it was just a nightmare. Just everything about it, it was in a tough spot. And then my career's kind of spiraled down. I actually got with Tom House, who, he's a guru with even with quarterbacks now. I got with him that off season, and he just got my head back, and he got me physically back and everything else. So it was that fight to get back. And the next year I put up good numbers with the Cubs, nothing. Next year I put up really good numbers with the Red Sox. I was at the airport twice to go up and meet the team. I mean, I had like a .3 after 50 innings. I was killing it. And both times, Franklin Morales, who was up in the big leagues, he was going on in and out of like shoulder injuries and everything else. So I get to the airport, said, false alarm, we'll check in and whatever else. So I was so close. I was so close to getting back to the big league. Sure enough, they get the World Series that year. I end up having an appendectomy. So the next year I was like, I'm going back to the big leagues. No matter what, man. I just had, my head was back to where I was, when I was in my prime here with the Mariners. And I went into with the D-backs, nothing promised. And I said, I'm making this team. I told Kirk Gibson, I told everyone, I said, I'm making this team. And I was on the outside looking in. They had a bunch of lefties, and I made the team. And it was nice to get back, just to sort of prove to myself that, I can be, if everything's right and I have that laser focus, I can do anything.
Yeah, that's cool, because that was a 3-year run, I believe.
It was.
And so 3 years of trying to get back.
Yeah.
And to get back must have just been huge for you.
It was great, and putting up good numbers too. The first year, 2011, I was a mess, but 2012 and 13. I was pitching really well, but there just wasn't, the business side of baseball. There just wasn't a spot for me with both teams, and I totally respect that. But going through that has made me who I am now. With able to if there's like American Ninja Warrior or trying new things or stuff like that, I was like, hey, I can do this. I've got this, So it really helped out, yeah.
You've done a lot, man, and I know I want to talk about Amanda and the way, because Amanda Aardsma, to a lot of baseball fans, they recognize the last name, and David Aardsma's sister, former teammate of yours. So you must have met while you were on the Mariners. And so give me a quick story of how you met, and then let's talk about her a little bit as an actress. But tell me how you met.
So 2009, he was my teammate. He was closing that year, Dave Aardsma, and she came up to visit. I remember I pitched on a Thursday, and that Friday, I remember everyone. It's funny. Sorry, I'm trying to keep this quick here.
You don't have to keep it quick.
Yeah, but it was funny because people were talking about her back in spring training that year. And I was like, and everyone's like, oh yeah, David's sister, you know what I mean? Because, she's good looking and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, I didn't think much of it. It's funny then, this is August 2009. I pitched on Thursday night. Friday, I'm just on the top step of the dugout hanging out. And like, oh, there's David's sister, and looking back, and there she was, like literally 10 rows back. I'm like, oh man, and Sunday afternoon, Mark Lowe, ex-teammate, he texts me, I'm living in Green Lake, and he texts me, says, hey, we're at this bar around the corner, come, we had a day game, we've got a road trip the next day, come meet us. And at that point I was tired, had a headache, I'm just sitting and watching TV, laying on the couch, and he said, I'm here with David, and David, his wife, and I'm like, it's a couples thing. I'm single, and I said, hold on, and then he said, oh yeah, I said, who else is there? And he said, David's sister's here as well. I said, okay. Sure enough, I got dressed and I went around the corner to the Little Red Hen in Green Lake, and I walk in, and just basically we just hit it off. She had watched an Australian show, Summer Heights High, this silly show. And I'm like, how do you know about this TV show? It was never on in the States. And she goes, a friend of mine told me about it, and we just bonded over that. We met, and it's funny, I didn't tell. We were talking, I got her number, and we were texting and everything else. But I didn't actually bring it up to David. And Mark Lowe, a couple of weeks later, was like, hey man, you need to talk to David, because he knows you're talking to Amanda, and I'm like, I'm going to wait till he comes in, closes the game or something like that. He comes in, gets a save, big game. I'm like, okay, he's in a good mood. I walk up to him and said, hey David, by the way, I just wanted to talk to you guys. Hey man, just do the right thing by her. That's what he said. I was like, all right, boom, that was it. Yeah. And then we started dating, and we got married in 2013. Yeah.
All right, so was she an actress at the time? Must have been a budding actress.
She was. So she was living in LA. She lived in LA for a long time, and there's parts of me that feel guilty that I sort of took that part of her life away, because we moved back up here, 2018, as well as you mentioned those years in the minor leagues where she was basically supporting my career, and it was tough for her to really pursue what she was doing, because she was starting to do really well. I mean, she was doing things like NCIS, CSI, Days of Our Lives, TV, So she was doing that kind of stuff, and then sure enough, I come along and moved my stuff into her place in LA, and then we moved up here and we started a family 2018 up here.
Does she have a project going right now?
No,
Nothing.
Nothing right now. No, nothing. I think we have a 1.5-year-old Lennox and a 5-year-old Kennedy, and we always talk. We said, hey, once they get a little bit older, go for it. Because I'll be doing less. Obviously not playing anymore. I want you to go for this again because it's a passion, man. She's got friends who have done big things, and she's sort of looking at them, and I want her to have her time as well, for sure.
Okay, so she's parked her career for now.
Yeah.
But she definitely wants to get back into it.
Absolutely, and she was. I mean, man, she helped me out a lot, and meeting some of her friends and people she's introduced me to as well. I'm like, man, she was right there, and part of me feels bad because I'm like, oh, hey, I'm moving in, and she was doing really well, and then we started a family and moved back up here.
Okay, so were you ever starstruck by any of her friends that you've met?
There was a couple. There's one of her really good friends. There's a show on TV, Vikings, on the History Channel. So Catherine Winnick, that's one of her best friends. She's like the lead in that. Just being around her and some of these other, I've met a lot of people through my wife. I mean, going to some of these parties and everything else, I'm like, oh, there's Tom Hanks is right there, getting a photo with Tom Hanks. Just little things like that, because we'd go to all those things, back when we were living in LA, and and all of us here we are up here, and I'm hoping that she gets another crack to do that again. Yeah.
Well, that's great, man. So you just kind of do a little Hollywood down there. That's cool.
I did not fit in. It's funny, and you brought up John Ryan. He's living in Los Angeles, and I struggled with it because I grew up in a beach town in Australia, and people take themselves very seriously down there, and I complained about living there all the time to my wife about this place and the traffic and everything else. But looking back, it's like, man, we got to do some really cool things. It really did.
Yeah.
But,
well, you're doing some cool stuff now, man. So the podcast is the top step.
Yep.
And you must have, it just must be some people just go to your website, which is pretty cool, man.
Yeah, I just started a website because it's hard to, you got Apple and Spotify and all this. So if you go to www.thetopstep.com, you go on there and you can click your option. If you've got an iPhone, it's all right there, and there's other stuff on. There's past episodes, and again, man, that's helped me out a lot during this isolation. Just hearing these stories and just getting that coming from a positive place. I think we all need that, and that's what I'm trying to do with that podcast.
Do you better be careful? You're going to be like a game show host or something. I mean, I know your dad was like a celebrity trainer, and you said your grandfather was a big wig. You seem super comfortable, just like out of the game, around the game maybe, and being in front of the camera.
I enjoy it. I mean, I get really lucky. I mean, working at Root Sports, with Angie and Brad and Jen and everyone I get to work with, that's made it so easy. I mean, it feels like family. I really enjoy it, and I miss watching baseball right now, like we all do. But I love it, man. It's one of those things that I got done playing, and I wanted something to not that underdog story, but a lot of people say, hey, you got to play 20 years in the big leagues to get a job. And I'm like, no, you don't. You know what I mean? Just like the same things that were said to me when I first signed, said, hey, you don't throw hard enough. You got a 98% chance of not getting out a rookie ball from Australia. I was like, hey, let's do this. So it's the same thing with this, man. I'm trying to make the most of this and do big things, yeah.
Well, it's fun to listen to you, man. You're doing a great job, and just keep it up, man, because there's a lot of people want to hear from you.
I appreciate it. This has been fun. I appreciate you guys having me.
All right, thanks, Ryan.
Awesome.